When it comes to being reincarnated into another world, receiving the strongest skills and being very active are what usually happens. However, for the protagonist of the story, it wasn't the case. A kid was casting a stone spell, fixing the broken tile on the floor. Exhausted, the kid managed to finish everything, which made everyone happy. A man approaches the kid telling him that because of what he had done, it would make pedaling much easier. The kid admits to himself that he is not someone who can take down a strong enemy with one hit, and is not even chosen as a hero. However, for the kid, if there are people who are happy about it, then he is fine with it. The kid then turns to the old man, telling him that it was about time for them to head back. Walking beside the kid, the old man couldn't believe that a 6-year-old was the one tasked to maintain the road. The story is about the kind-hearted protagonist who makes the most of their past life's memories to achieve great things. A 35-year-old man named Michio Tsuchida was a normal salary worker and also the kid's previous self. On his way home from work, Tsuchida heard someone scream. Turning around, Tsuchida saw a kid being taken hostage. The hostage-taker stated that in 2 minutes he will be able to go to a different world. In order to achieve his goal, the hostage-taker plans to offer the kid to Marigus, pleading for his lord to transfer him to his world. Seeing all of it, the mother begged for the little girl to be released. Witnessing the chaos, Tsuchida thought that it was totally bad and wondered what the police were doing. Tsuchida sensed that something bad was about to happen. Whenever Tsuchida feels something bad in the past, it usually comes. Seeing the hostage-taking, Tsuchida knows that it is serious. As people who are witnessing just thought how bad the situation is, they could only ask for the hostage-taker to let go of the kid. As the man mentioned that there is only a minute left, Tsuchida sensed that something bad was about to take place, so he decided to take action himself. Tsuchida charges at the man and successfully separates the girl from the hostage-taker. However, the hostage-taker was desperate and still tried to harm the little girl, muttering that it was now time and that he would be free. Tsuchida shields the little girl and pleads to the hostage-taker to stop. However, Tsuchida's heroic action led to him getting stabbed in the back. This pissed the man off and he told Tsuchida to not get in his way. As Tsuchida's vision slowly fades away, he sees how the man is being subdued by the officers and is being asked to calm down. The man in response told the officers to let him go and continued to call for Marigus. The little girl who Tsuchida saved was now back in her mother's arms, who was also thanking Tsuchida for saving her daughter's life. Hearing another voice, Tsuchida wonders who it is, and thought if he is hearing a different voice aside from the mother. Hearing another thank you, Tsuchida recognized it as the same voice. A name is being called, telling the person to pull himself together and wake up. Another voice was heard telling the young master to stay focused. The name Cain kept getting called, telling him that he can do it. When the boy finally woke up, a woman was shocked to see that the boy had finally regained consciousness. Confused, the boy wonders who the beautiful woman is. The servants then saw that Cain had finally woken up, which made the butler order the maid to notify Dana right away. Still very much confused, Cain wonders where he is. From what Cain noticed, there are many people wearing clothes and being surrounded by furniture that he has never seen before. Cain felt a sharp pain in his head as he experienced a terrible headache, which was caused by information being flooded into his head. After absorbing all of the information, Cain finally remembers who he is. Cain Sanroze, the fourth son of Viscount Sanroze. 2 weeks have passed since he woke up. Tsuchida reincarnated into a different world and was now living as the boy whose name was Cain. Cain remembered up until he was 5 years old. The woman who Cain first saw was Lydia Sanroze, the first lady of the Sanroze family. Lydia calls Cain's name, asking him if something is wrong and if he is okay. Lydia isn't Cain's real mother, as Cain's real mother, Linnell, had died from illness in place of the Sanroze. Lydia has been taking care of Cain devotedly. Lydia informs Cain how he fell downstairs and almost died. Cain couldn't respond clearly. Moving much closer, Lydia comments how Cain's complexion didn't look bad. With his stomach growling, Cain tells Lydia that he is hungry. Smiling, Lydia mentioned that she could tell. Lydia finds it good timing that she brought some rice porridge with bread. Seeing the food, Cain's eyes glowed and mentioned that it looked delicious. Trying to feed Cain, Lydia orders Cain to open. Feeling embarrassed, Cain tells Lydia that he can eat by himself now. However, Lydia insists on feeding Cain since he has not fully recovered yet, telling Cain to be good and stay still. Cain had no other choice but to comply, opening his mouth. Praising Cain for eating a lot, Lydia notices that after Cain woke up, his personality changed and was now a bit more gentle. Cain used to be more clingy. Hearing this, Cain responded, "Is that so?" while thinking that maybe he is still being distant because he still has Tsuchida's memories. Trying to play it cool, Cain calls Lydia "mother" and hugs her. Cain's face turns red as Lydia tells him how he is such a clingy child. A girl peeks from the doorway asking Lydia if she can come in. The girl is Alice Sanroze, the eldest daughter of the Sanroze family. Alice was told to knock and wait for an answer before opening the door. However, since the door was already open, Lydia mentioned that it's unavoidable today and told Alice to come in. Approaching Cain, Alice asks if Cain was now okay. Alice then tells Cain that he needs to get a good night's sleep. Remembering how Alice often visits Cain in his sleep, Lydia mentions how Alice has been worried about Cain all this time. Embarrassed, Alice asks Lydia why she had to reveal it. Seeing Alice's reaction, Lydia points out that Alice is blushing. Touching Cain's forehead, Alice asks Cain if he is truly fully recovered, and goes ahead, checking Cain to see if he has a fever. Alice was unsure about Cain's temperature. Cain smiles and tells Alice that her hands felt cold, which felt very nice. Cain has 3 older brothers and 1 older sister. Unlike Tsuchida, Cain's siblings are all stunningly beautiful. Cain Sanroze, Cain's father, appeared and told Alice that if she keeps bugging Cain, he won't be able to rest well. Luke then sees how Cain's complexion has improved a lot. Seeing that, Luke believes that Cain will be fine for next week's baptism ceremony. Confused, Cain asked about the baptism ceremony. The capital where Cain lives is small for a viscountcy. It is a town surrounded by walls with a population of around 5,000 people. On average, a viscountcy typically has a population of over 10,000, which means that the current population is half of the average. In Cain's world, when one turns 5, they undergo the baptism ceremony and are granted at least 1 skill by the gods. For the official explanation, those who undergo the baptism would have their individual aptitudes checked. The skill the kids receive would determine their future. For Cain, having one's life being decided by others is kinda nerve-wracking. Everything was different from Cain's past life since Tsuchida's life didn't exactly shine. With Tsuchida ending up transferring to a different world by some chance, he wonders what is going to happen to him moving forward. Although Cain is worried, he still couldn't hide his excitement. Coming to a different world, Cain tells himself how he shouldn't waste it and that he must have fun. When one reincarnates into a different world, they get an infinite item box and other stuff that is similar to that. Being able to dominate with all-element magic and alchemy is the standard template from what Cain guessed. Wondering what he would get, Cain was now looking forward to his baptism. When the day finally came, Cain and his family visited the church. Lydia and Alice were then asked to wait while the rest went in. Lydia hopes that Cain would receive a good skill, while Alice cheers for Cain. Cain was then greeted by the bishop, calling Cain's name and thanking him for coming. The bishop introduces herself as Sistina. Starting the baptismal ceremony, Sistina asks for Cain to hold her hand. Sistina also asked for Cain to close his eyes as she was about to offer a prayer. As Sistina starts her prayer, Cain suddenly heard a voice which he recognized as the one that he heard when he got reincarnated. Cain noticed that he was no longer in his world and saw a woman with wings. Cain asks the woman where he was. The woman responded that he is currently in the divine realm. The woman wanted to thank Cain, which is why she called out to him. The woman introduces herself as the goddess Guardia. Surprised upon hearing the goddess's name, Cain remembered that Guardia is one of the gods of his new world, the goddess who governs the world. Goddess Guardia could tell that Cain has been studying hard. Cain was shocked when he realized that Guardia was reading his mind. Guardia asks Cain if he still remembers his last moments on Earth. Touching his head, Cain responded that his memories are a bit vague but remembers that he died protecting a girl. Guardia thanked Cain for saving the girl and shared that the kid is the vessel for her grandchild. If Cain hadn't protected the child, things would have been very bad. Seeing the goddess smile and thanking him, Cain's only thoughts were how soft the goddess's hands were. Regaining his senses, Cain pulls his hand back and tells Guardia that he is glad that the kid is safe. Since Cain is facing the goddess, he theorizes that what had happened to the child is something that was made possible by the goddess's power. Talking about impossible things that are possible, the goddess admits that the event can be changed with her powers. However, if she were to intervene starting with Earth, a distortion would have occurred in Cain's world as well. For that reason, Goddess Guardia was very much grateful to Cain for protecting both her grandchild's life and the world. Cain didn't mind, as he was just glad to know that his life was able to be of use to the world. Just knowing that his life had meaning, Cain had nothing more to say. The goddess tells Cain that there was no time to do the other task. The goddess summons Cain's status board. Seeing this excites Cain, as it is one of the things that he had always longed for. Reading the board, the goddess saw that Cain is already holding a skill. Cain was asked if he remembered something being passed down when his mother Linnell died. Thinking back, Cain remembers that the hand he was holding was glowing or something. Guardia tells Cain that he is right and points out that he has inherited the recovery magic skill from his mother. Cain finally learns that he gained a skill from his real mother. As a token of gratitude, Guardia wanted to grant Cain 3 skills. As a large machine suddenly appeared, the goddess asked Cain to press the roulette button. Cain recognized the machine as a slot machine. Realizing that he was about to gamble, Cain was caught by surprise. Since they were going with a slot machine, Cain asked if they couldn't freely choose their skills. Guardia pointed out that some reincarnates chose skills that could disrupt the world's balance. which is why they made it random. As a consolation, they were giving Cain 3 skills and asked him to understand. Cain eventually agreed and even thought that Guardia had it tough as well. Cain could only hope that he'd get some cool skills. As the machine spun and stopped, Cain obtained the skills: Earth Magic, Unlimited Magic Power, and Magical Array Magic. However, Cain had no clue about the skills. Thinking how plain it looked, Cain wondered if Earth Magic was strong. Having unlimited power, Cain theorized that he might be able to work the things that he comes up with. When Cain noticed how shocked Guardia was, Guardia jokingly told Cain that her luck stat might not be high enough. Cain mentioned how the skills he got were kind of a dud. Guardia, worried about how things were going, decided to grant Cain her blessing. As the Earth Goddess, Guardia gets a bonus to Earth Magic. Placing her fingers on Cain's forehead, Guardia was able to transfer her minor blessing to Cain. After granting Cain a blessing, Guardia told Cain that if he prays at the church, they'll be able to find Cain. Guardia knew that it would be a difficult task but hoped that Cain would still do it. Guardia also asked Cain to occasionally report on how things were going. Before vanishing, Guardia hoped that Cain's future would be filled with happiness. Before Cain could say anything, he finally returned to the church and was now facing the bishop. After her prayer, the bishop was shocked to see that Cain obtained 3 skills. Furthermore, Cain also received the blessing of Goddess Guardia. Hearing this, Luke was shocked and asked the bishop to repeat it. Although his skills were a bit weak, there was a possibility that Cain's stats were completely off the charts. Eager to see his stats, Cain opened his status board and was shocked to see that all were single digits. Seeing his vitality only at 5, Cain was certain that he would die right away. Cain was starting to worry, wondering what would happen to his strongest life in the other world. Thinking about his skill, Cain realized that Earth Magic was a perfect match for him. Cain called upon his magic, ordering it to follow his will and to prosper, chanting using the words "create play." Cain created an abacus and showed it to his parents. As the two had never seen such a tool before, they were just in awe at how well it was made and how the tool could do arithmetic. Luke and Lydia were very much impressed with Cain, telling him how amazing he was. Cain's earth magic is very useful in creating things or for agriculture. A man then barged into the room telling Dana how amazed he was after seeing the bountiful harvest that came from the field that Cain made with his magic. Cain's magic isn't much on a grand scale. However, this suited his personality. After being reincarnated into another world and ending up being blessed with 3 skills, which is very much considered a cheat, everything was going fine until Cain saw the skills he received. Cain felt an ominous feeling coming from the goddess who blessed him. Thinking about his draw and how terrible they were, Cain immediately could tell that the skills were just a bunch of mundane magic, which also showed that he may have a difficult road ahead of him. Seeing Cain spacing out, his father Luke asked him what was wrong. Regaining his senses, Cain responded that there was no problem. Stepping out of the room, Lydia asked Cain about his skills and what type of skills he obtained. Curious as well, Alice also wanted to know how many skills Cain received. Luke informed the two that Cain was blessed with 2 skills, Earth Magic and Magical Array Magic. Cain also inherited healing magic from his biological mother, Linnell. Since his 3rd skill, Unlimited Magic Power, was hidden, it wasn't visible to Luke and the others. Hearing all of it, Alice was very much happy for Cain, telling Cain how good it was for him to obtain 3 skills. Caught by surprise, Cain could only mutter Alice's name. When Alice mentioned how Cain also received skills from his mother Linnell, it made Cain wonder if Alice also inherited skills from Linnell. Lydia understood what earth magic is but admitted that she had no clue what magical array magic is. Luke also had no clue, which made him decide to write a letter to Benjamin and have him look further into it. With Cain receiving the elemental magic, Luke couldn't help but worry. Lydia told Luke not to worry about it and pointed out that they can still investigate it later after they get home. Luke agreed and called Cain's name, telling him that the status board is something not to be shown to the family. Everything that is shown in the status board is private, and having it looked at or taking a look at others is a breach of etiquette. Luke hoped that Cain remembered his words. Cain bowed his head and told his father that he understood in response. Cain learned that his information is a secret even from trusted family members. In normal cases, people show each other's stats and cooperate. No longer dwelling on it, Cain guessed that he would just follow the world's rules. Cain thought that if he were to make friends, he would just decide about it for himself. Cain also gets to decide how to use his skills. Thinking all that made Cain very much excited. Cain told himself that as soon as he got back to the mansion, he would check his skills out, very much eager to start his new life in another world. While checking his status board, Cain saw a note from the goddess Guardia, telling Cain that since he hasn't learned the magic manipulate skill yet, Cain's unlimited magic power will be deactivated until he can skillfully manipulate magic. Guardia hoped that Cain would learn the magic manipulation skill quickly to gain access to his other skill. Reading all of it, Cain was truly shocked. Cain believes that Guardia should have had a certain level of authority, and adding to his skills is also the blessing he got from Guardia. Reading his status board, Cain thought that the skills he got are actually quite good. Being resistant to status ailments is considered minor, but for Cain, it is still quite good. The last thing Cain read was the understanding of different world languages. This made Cain wonder if it would allow him to read the text in front of him. Curious, Cain was now eager to study more of it. Cain puts his hands together, sarcastically thanking Guardia for the bonus skill he received. Cain then tells himself that the skills were fine, and that being able to use magic is still very much exciting. Cain wonders what he will be able to do with his magic. Hearing a knock at his door, Cain gave permission to enter. Entering his room are the family butler Randolph and Alice, who is looking for Cain. Randolph informs Cain that Dana is calling for him to the reception room. Cain understands and responds that he will be there shortly. Cain wanted to investigate more about his skills and wondered what the reason was why he is being called. Alice gets in front of Cain's face, taking him by surprise and asking him if he was even listening to her. Pouting, Alice tells Cain not to ignore her anymore. Cain immediately apologizes to his sister for being rude. Alice guesses that Cain got preoccupied with the matter of his skills. The moment they arrived at the mansion, Alice tells Cain that he had shut himself in his room, which gave her a bad feeling. Alice then enjoyingly toys with Cain's cheeks. Alice becomes embarrassed when Randolph reveals that Alice too did the same thing when she first received her skills. Waving her arms around, Alice asks Randolph why he had to reveal such a thing. Alice clarifies that hers was different and that she just wanted to read the rest of the book. Alice explains that at that time, she was late for dinner because she was so absorbed in the book. Hearing everything, Cain thought that his sister was also looking at the skill board until evening. Listening to Alice's explanation, Randolph apologizes for his mistake. Though Alice tries to cover up something she finds embarrassing, Cain already could tell that Randolph knows everything and was just acting like an adult. Changing the topic, Alice informs Cain that since they received a skill from their mother, Linnell, they must treasure the skill. Hearing this, Cain couldn't help but laugh. Annoyed, Alice asks what was so funny. Entering the room, Cain could only think of how childish his sister is. Cain saw how both Lydia and his father shared a serious look and immediately sensed how heavy the atmosphere was. Nervous, Cain was about to ask why he was called, but Luke interrupts him. Luke starts off by telling Cain that the skills received are not that great, which suggests that his future may be tough, and asks for Cain not to be too down. Hearing this, Cain was unsure how to react. Lydia was annoyed at how Luke explained their worries. Luke apologizes, explaining that he got the order wrong. Cain asks why he should be down. In noble society, that includes their own. The skills that Cain received during baptism would shape and determine his future. For people who received combat-related skills, they attend the Knight Academy and join the Knight Orders of the Kingdom or the Territorial Lords. For those who received combat magic skills, they attend the Magician Academy and also join the Knight Orders of the Kingdom or the Territorial Lords. The others who receive political skills generally attend the Royal Academy and become bureaucrats for the Kingdom or the Territorial Lords. However, Luke checked that the earth magic Cain possessed doesn't have any effective magic for attacking, even when its level increases. As for magical array magic, the details about it are still unknown. Summing up his words, Luke calls Cain's name, and though he didn't want to say it to his son, Luke informs Cain that he still has a promising future ahead of him, but it might not be something that he would look forward to. Hearing this, the whole room became silent for Cain. Shocked, Cain never expected that his parents would think of his future as that despairing. Cain admits that he too complained about his skills and has strong emotions toward them, but he still believes that being resourceful is a necessary skill, and that there's no need for Luke and Lydia to be sad about it. Out of nowhere, Lydia comes to Cain, hugging him tightly. Lydia reassures Cain that they won't ever abandon him. Cain observed his surroundings and saw how Lydia, Luke, and their maids looked sad and worried. Cain never expected that everyone would be so worried about him. It wasn't like that in Cain's previous world, and he still didn't want to make his family and acquaintances sad. Cain lifts his chin up and tells his father that he has a request for him. From what Cain knows, earth magic requires the magic control skill to be used. Cain wishes to learn the magic control skill. If Luke knows a way to learn the skill, Cain hopes that his father would share such information with him. If his father does not know about it, Cain asks for his father's permission to enter the library at home. As he plans to investigate it himself, Cain reassures his parents that he is fine, as he is certain that he would be able to do all sorts of things once he masters earth magic. If his plans don't work out, Cain guessed that they can just use his earth magic to create a statue. If Cain were to master the recovery magic that he inherited from his mother, Lionel, Cain believes that he would be able to heal the people of their territory. Telling both his parents that everything is fine, he asked that they not worry about him that much. Both Lydia and Luke were speechless at first, but then approached Cain, agreeing to everything he had said. Luke gained hope that earth magic may be able to help his son shape a better future. Lydia also agrees, telling Cain that as parents, they can't give up. Hugging Cain tightly, Lydia promises Cain that they will work together. Luke became excited and was very eager to write a letter to Benjamin, ordering him to come home for the next break. Knowing Benjamin, Luke was certain that Benjamin knows how to acquire the magic control skill. Luke also plans to have Benjamin investigate the magical array magic skill at the Magic Academy. Cain agrees to everything Luke said. Cain's speech had a bit of momentum, pointing out that the world isn't just about battling. Seeing how nice everyone is, this made Cain want to work hard even more to avoid making them sad. Cain thinks positively, pointing out how he is still 5 years old, and by that world's standards, he still has another 50 years to go, which he plans to enjoy. Thinking about Benjamin, whom his father keeps mentioning, Cain only knows that Benjamin is attending the Magic Academy now. After that, Cain would come to know that using magic isn't that sweet with Benjamin as his teacher. Meanwhile, a student was being told to focus, pointing out that the student's attitude won't help him defeat a single goblin. The student muttered how he didn't hear anything about a surprise magic test. Upon calling for the next student, a long-haired fellow came forward and froze the examination tool. That person is the one who opened up the possibilities of magical array magic. Others were shocked, thinking that what they saw must be a lie. Others who recognized the person expected no less from him, since he was known to be the greatest prodigy of the Magic Academy ever since it was founded. That person was none other than Benjamin Sanroze. 6 months had passed by since Cain told himself that he would do his best using his own skills. The Sanroze family maid tells Cain that he didn't need to rush so much. Cain could no longer keep still because the day he has been waiting for has finally arrived. It was the day that his big brother Benjamin would be returning. Cain received an order from his father that he is forbidden from using magic until he masters magic control. Luke was worried that if Cain would use magic without learning it properly, things may go haywire and would end up with Cain losing his magic. Luke and Cain made an agreement that he would learn magic control once Benjamin returns. Cain never thought that Benjamin wouldn't be back until the New Year's break. Finally seeing Benjamin, Cain immediately approached him and welcomed him first. Benjamin interacts with Alice and Cain, telling them how much they've grown. Behind Cain, Randolph appears and welcomes him. Cain in response tells Randolph that he is now home, and asks Randolph if he still can't drop the young master title. Randolph responds that he will not until Benjamin comes of age. Randolph then informs Benjamin that both Luke and Lydia are in the parlor room waiting for him. Benjamin understands and immediately went and saw his parents. Meanwhile, Randolph is also guiding both Cain and Alice to the parlor room. From what Cain observes, Benjamin seemed to be very capable. Benjamin has apparently become an instructor at the age of 14. It is said to be a feat that is first in the history of the Magic Academy. Seeing Benjamin's return, both Luke and Lydia welcome him back. Benjamin was then asked how his journey was, and if he's managing school all right, as well as the status of his research. Staring at Benjamin, Cain couldn't believe how mature Benjamin is despite being 14. Cain even thought that Benjamin is more level-headed than him, who's already lived so much in the previous life. Luke changes his tone and tells Benjamin that he has a request for him. Luke hopes that Benjamin would help Cain acquire magical manipulation while he is still staying. Luke shares that Cain has both earth and restoration magic, and that magic manipulation is necessary. Luke also shares how Cain is very eager to start using magic, revealing how Cain has been trying to keep in shape while waiting for Benjamin. Cain was very happy when Benjamin responded that he would help out. However, he was left confused when Benjamin stared at him, smirking. The next morning, Benjamin tells Cain that before they start, he wants Cain to do something for him. Benjamin asks Cain if the skills he gained during his baptism are only magical array, earth magic, and restoration magic. Cain wanted to be honest with his older brother that he still has another skill called infinite mana, but was worried that it may complicate things more. Cain felt conflicted in revealing his hidden ability. In the end, Cain didn't reveal the infinite mana skill and told Benjamin that he is correct. Benjamin understands and told Cain that it is originally a taboo for one to ask about the numerical value of stats. However, since he will be the one teaching Cain, Benjamin tells him that it is important and wants for Cain to be honest and share his stats with him. When Benjamin asks Cain how much mana he has, Cain thought at first that since it is his brother asking, it would be alright to reveal such information. When Cain mentioned that his mana is 1,800, Benjamin asks for Cain to repeat it as he may have misheard him. When Cain repeats that it is 1,800, Benjamin was in total disbelief since Cain's mana is more than the predicted times, and that even he only has 320. Compared to Benjamin's mana, Cain's is about 6 times that. Hearing that, Benjamin realized that he has to change the way he teaches. Benjamin then tells Cain that he will be using an item while he is in training. After asking Cain to show his arm, Benjamin then places an item on Cain's wrist and orders him to keep it on until he learns how to control earth magic. After asking Benjamin what the item was, Cain was caught by surprise when he suddenly felt that something was being sucked out of him. Benjamin reminds Cain to not take the item off and explains that the item is a magic absorber, which he himself developed. The device is normally used to prevent magical criminals from using magic as it drains all the wearer's magic power. The special version Cain is using can be set to leave the wearer's magic power remaining. The device will drain Cain's magic power until it reaches 10. Noticing the stone glowing, Cain tells Benjamin about it. Benjamin in response tells Cain that it is good, as it hinted that Cain's power is now at 10. Checking the item himself, Benjamin confirms that 1,790 was deducted. After telling Cain that they will now begin with their lesson, Benjamin wants them to start with the method for acquiring magic control, which has 4 stages. The 4 stages are focus, circulation, release, and sustain. For concentration, Benjamin orders for Cain to imagine gathering all of his mana on his lower abdomen. Placing his hands on his abdomen, Cain asks if he was doing it right. As Cain tries to gather his mana, he forces himself to concentrate. Cain then notices that his abdomen was starting to feel warm. Seeing this, Benjamin did not expect that Cain would achieve it on his first try. Benjamin then asks Cain if he felt something changed. Confused, Cain asked what it was. Benjamin asked if there was a problem, to which Cain responded that he felt warmth under his hands, but it was now gone. Benjamin then orders Cain to try keeping the warmth going even when he is not focusing on it. After their training, Cain spent his days literally soaked in training. 3 days have passed and Cain was now able to maintain the warmth in his abdomen. Cain was amazed at his improvement and shares with Benjamin that he finally managed to keep the warmth from dispersing even when he is no longer focusing. As soon as Benjamin tells Cain that he has passed, Cain immediately sits on the floor, exhausted from the training. Cain was so exhausted that he compared it to when he once worked 30 days straight. Cain was shocked when Benjamin tells him that they will now be moving on to the next step. When Cain calls for his big brother, Benjamin asks what the problem was, to which Cain responds that his body is stiff and tense, not allowing him to move that much. Benjamin asks Cain if he wanted to call it a day, pointing out that whatever Cain's decision is was fine with him. Benjamin reminds Cain that he won't be able to use magic unless he learns magic control, which is why he is around. Benjamin then warns Cain that he won't be able to use magic for about a year and asks if he was fine with it. Hearing this, Cain wondered if his brother is the type that has a demon-like personality. For Cain's next lesson, which was circulation, Benjamin first orders him to focus. Cain closes his eyes, maintaining focus. Cain had finally gotten used to focusing his mana, which was now very easy for him. Cain was thinking how he may actually be a bit talented and that what he is doing was now just a piece of cake. Benjamin tells Cain that he is not doing bad, and then orders Cain to move the magic that he has gathered onto his chest. Benjamin gave Cain a tip and told him to imagine his magic slowly rising to his chest. Cain understands and follows Benjamin's orders. As Cain tells himself to rise, he was shocked when he realized that he couldn't move it at all. 10 minutes later, Cain finally gave up as he wasn't able to move the magic at all. Benjamin guesses that doing it all at once was still difficult for Cain. Benjamin decides to help Cain a bit and orders him to start focusing again. Cain starts focusing again, gathering the magic and forming it into a ball. Benjamin tells Cain that it might hurt a bit but asks him to just bear with it. Cain was surprised when he noticed that the magic was now moving. However, Cain also didn't expect that he would feel so much pain. Cain tells Benjamin that he is now hurting. Benjamin explains that it is the process of expanding the narrow path for magic to flow through, so that magic can pass through more easily. In expanding the magic pathway, Benjamin tells Cain that it is only normal that it would hurt. Cain lost balance and ended up stumbling again. Benjamin praises Cain for bearing with it and doing a good job. Benjamin explains that what they did was circulation, and then orders Cain to move the magic to his lower abdomen, chest, head, chest, left hand, right foot, left foot, and back to his lower abdomen. If Cain were to do all of that, then he would pass. Hearing all that, Cain couldn't help but tear up and thought that he was correct, that his brother was exactly a demon. 5 days after the intense pain incident, Benjamin notices that Cain has been occasionally giving him a wary glance. Benjamin guesses that he was just a bit too harsh in their last session. However, they are also running out of time. Cain approaches Benjamin, telling him that he has finally achieved the task for circulation. Shocked, Benjamin asks Cain if he has actually achieved circulation. Cain responds that he did, and asks for Benjamin to watch as he proceeds to demonstrate circulation. When Cain brought the magic power he had moved back down to his lower abdomen, he noticed that the magic power had become a little more concentrated. By circulating magic power, Cain confirms it with Benjamin that he is able to make it bigger. Benjamin could only laugh and tell his brother how amazing he is. With the habit of overtime work from his salaryman days, even when Benjamin wasn't around, Cain ended up practicing anyway. Cain was just glad that his practice turned out for the better. Moving to their next lesson, which is release, Benjamin asks for Cain to bring his palms together in front of his chest and make a circle with them. Cain would then have to circulate the magic power between his palms and that he must keep his palms pressed tightly together. Cain notices something and tells Benjamin that his magic power can't move because it is hitting something at Benjamin's right hand. Benjamin tells Cain that he will give him 3 options. First is Benjamin would assist Cain like how he did during circulation. Next is for Cain to make the magic power a bit smaller and try again. Lastly is for Cain to make the magic power bigger and try again. When Benjamin asks Cain which one he prefers, Cain becomes frightened as he notices that his brother was once again turning into a demon. Regardless of what Cain chooses, he knows that it will be painful. Cain chooses option 1, which Benjamin confirms with Cain that he is choosing the first option. Benjamin places his hands behind Cain and tells him that they will be doing circulation again. With his hands together, Cain senses Benjamin's magic flowing into him. The form of the magic was starting to become thin and pointed. As soon as the magic reached Cain's palm, he noticed something. Cain informs Benjamin that he is now hurting. As Cain bears the pain, his hands won't come off since there's an external force being applied. Benjamin tells Cain that the magic power has entered Cain's left hand, telling him that he has done a good job. Benjamin informs Cain that he will keep circulating. After their grueling training, both finally stopped and are exhausted. Benjamin tells Cain that what they did is releasing the magic outside the body, which is the 3rd stage called release. Cain can't help but tear up from the pain, muttering Benjamin's name. Benjamin asks Cain if he had said something, to which Cain immediately told his brother that he had said nothing. Benjamin asks Cain to try making a circle with his hands slightly apart and circulating it. Since the magic has passed through once, Benjamin was certain that the process should now be a lot easier. After 2 hours, Cain was now able to perform the release. Cain then calls for Benjamin, telling him that he is now able to do it even without holding hands. Despite the painful process, Cain couldn't deny that the process works since he was now able to release right away. For their next lesson, which is maintenance, Benjamin warns Cain that the last stage is very dangerous and that they will be doing their training outside the castle walls. Benjamin advises Cain to not lose his concentration halfway through. If Cain were to feel that he is about to lose concentration, Benjamin orders him to raise both his hands diagonally forward and up. Hearing this, Cain wonders why he had to diagonally forward his hands and up. Resuming their training, Benjamin again instructs Cain to start with circulation and sufficiently hone his magic power, then move on to release. As Cain follows Benjamin's instructions, he is then told by Benjamin to stop the magic between both hands and form it into a sphere. Looking at Cain's progress, Benjamin praises him. Along with the magic power that continues to be released, Cain can feel the magic power being drained from his body. Unable to control the magic further, Cain thought that the situation was about to get bad. Cain finally lost focus and ended up releasing the magic onto the ground. Witnessing Cain's mistake, Benjamin hits Cain's head and is reminded that he had to raise his hands diagonally forward and up when he loses concentration. Cain couldn't believe that he was the one who made such a mess. Benjamin tells Cain that if he hadn't followed his instructions, Cain would have been seriously injured. Benjamin lectures Cain, telling him that magic isn't a toy and that he has to take responsibility when using it. Hearing all that, Cain realized that he was getting a bit carried away. Since coming to the other world and being able to use magic, Cain had become curious about magic and wanted to use it for whatever purpose. However, in reality, if Cain had made just one misstep, it would have been very dangerous. Cain asks Benjamin to teach him again and promises to follow his instructions properly. Cain would no longer make any excuses or even complain, and asks for Benjamin to teach him again. Seeing Cain's determined look, Benjamin smiles and agrees to teach him again. The two then started from the beginning. After 4 days, Cain had finally acquired magic manipulation. Looking at his status board, Cain confirms that the magic manipulation has been added. Cain cheers as he could now cast magic. Benjamin also congratulates Cain and points out how Cain was able to increase his skills so quickly, a feat that Benjamin believes is quite rare. Cain bows to Benjamin, thanking his big brother for training him. Benjamin then informs Cain that if he can do the training, he will be able to attack without using spells. Benjamin proceeds to demonstrate a destructive magic and directs it towards the ground. After making contact, Benjamin's magic blast ended up creating a huge hole. Cain was in shock, wondering if Benjamin is from the world of Dragon Ball or something. Realizing how powerful his brother is, Cain thought that he absolutely shouldn't disobey him. 2 days after the new year, Benjamin went back to the academy. Cain experienced an intense training period, but later felt accomplished when he finally was able to use magic control. Excited, Cain decides that moving forward, he will be using magic to the limit of his magical power. Cain then remembers that he was still using the magic absorber tool Benjamin left him. Cain remembers that if he didn't take the tool off, he would run out of magic right away. After removing the magic tool, Cain then used the method he learned from his big brother Benjamin, starting with focus, then circulate and maintain, following the instructions and casting the spell, Stone Bullet. Cain was very much impressed after seeing stones appearing out of nowhere. Being able to use magic, Cain could no longer hide his excitement. Actually, being able to perform magic got Cain pumped up. Cain also discovered that not only could he use stone, he can also use magic to make a hole. After testing out his stone creation magic, Cain uses his magic again, but now to create a hole. Casting his spell, Cain was able to carve out a circular shape onto the ground. However, he was very disappointed since it didn't look much like a hole. Cain stumbles as he is running out of magical energy. Cain was left with only 20 magical energy after being drained by the magic absorber. After casting 2 spells, Cain realized that 20 was just not enough to perform spells and not get exhausted. The lack of magical energy resulted because Cain had been training with Benjamin until the year ended. The training still proved very beneficial as Cain was able to level up. Cain woke up and realized that he had fallen asleep, wondering if it was already evening. Cain was shocked when he sensed that he was getting more magic than usual. Cain's magic had fully recovered after removing the magic absorber. Staring at his status board, Cain remembers that he was only using 1% of his magic up until now, and even thought that he may have gotten used to the feeling of having low magical energy. Cain then excitedly went out to start off with his magic practice. However, Lydia saw Cain about to step out and asked where he was headed to. Lydia reminded Cain that it was almost dinner time, and also asked Cain where he was during lunch. Cain thought that he was in trouble, unable to explain clearly his reason. Cain knows that if he were to tell the real reason, that he had been practicing magic instead of studying, he would certainly make Lydia mad. Cain ends up lying, telling Lydia that he had been studying the alphabet with Alice. Exhausted from his study session, Cain thought of taking a walk or something. Hearing this, Lydia was shocked and understood that taking a break was necessary, and apologized to Cain for doubting him. Cain, in response, told Lydia that he didn't mind. Inside Cain's head, he felt apologetic for feeling guilty. Returning to his training ground, Cain notices that the hole he made was still there and has not returned to normal even after some time has passed. Cain thought that the spell he cast had a continuous water effect, and that he had to be careful or someone might fall and get hurt. Thinking of a way to erase the hole he created, Cain finally thought of one after thinking about it for some time. Trying the magic out, Cain chanted delete, which then covered the hole with more dirt. Cain was very much amazed seeing how the whole thing had disappeared. Noticing his hand tremble, Cain realized that the amount of magic used in covering the hole was twice the amount when he made the hole. To remove his magic, Cain wonders if it would take twice the magic used for the magic he wanted to erase. This made Cain realize that such spells can't be easily used unless one is a magician that has a lot of magic. However, Cain got even more excited and wanted to verify his theories. Cain starts using his magic, creating multiple holes on the ground. After creating the holes, Cain then went ahead and covered them using the delete spell. Though Cain felt drained, he thought that earth magic may actually be very good. The next day, Cain's eyes shone brightly, wanting to do more magic training. When Alice saw Cain going outside, she tells Cain how lucky he is for being able to go outside every day, unlike her who is stuck with studying. As Alice sighs, not wanting to do math anymore, Lydia sees and approaches her. Lydia then cheers Alice up, telling her good luck studying with Cain again. Alice was confused, wondering why Lydia mentioned Cain. Lydia tells Alice that she knows Cain is studying alongside her. However, Alice responds, pointing out that Cain is always outside. Hearing this, the two were left dumbfounded. In his magic session, Cain started out with stone. After casting the stone spell, Cain was able to manifest a square-shaped stone, which he was caught by surprise. Looking at the stone, Cain had thought that it would just be a regular stone. However, the stone came out in a block-like form. This ignited Cain's curiosity, wanting to do more research about earth magic. After casting stone spells multiple times, Cain created a pile of blocked stones. With the stone spell, Cain felt like he had become a human stone manufacturing machine. After summarizing his test results so far, Cain finds it a success. Seeing his status board, Cain thought that earth magic is very useful. Cheering himself up, Cain was about to train even harder when Lydia called out his name. To Cain's surprise, he saw both Lydia and Alice together. Lydia asks Cain if he had been outside the whole time. Lydia tells Cain that she already knows the truth from Alice and how Cain had lied about studying. Alice also didn't find it very fair that only Cain could go outside and play. As Lydia drags Cain back, Cain tries to lie again to Lydia, telling her that he had also been studying magic. Before Cain knew it, he was already in front of the instructor. Sitting beside the instructor and Alice, Cain thought that with the ability to understand foreign world languages, he could read everything and understand the meaning, but because of that, it becomes a task of endlessly writing characters which he already knows. Cain felt like a 35-year-old doing a workbook meant for 6-year-olds. Despite having all sorts of things like that, it had already been 6 months since Benjamin returned. As a result of Cain's continuous training, his magic control is now level 2. Cain's earth magic had leveled up to 2 as well. When Cain also learned magic control, the unlimited magic power skill had become active. As a bonus, Cain also acquired the avoid studying skill. Checking his status board, Cain finally understood his skills. This ignited Cain's curiosity again, wanting to learn other magic spells that he has gained. From what Cain could tell in his status board, he gained 3 new spells. After gaining the Earth Wall, Cain now plans on using it as a target for his stone spell. For the other 2 spells, Cain was uncertain and pointed out that many people would consider earth magic to be a dud. Remembering his parents' words, Cain decides to just not think about it and would proceed in practicing using the Earth Wall. After casting Earth Wall, Cain then used his stone bullets and targeted the wall. Seeing how sturdy the wall is after being hit by 1 stone, it made Cain want to test the wall more by checking how many stones it can withstand before breaking. Cain continued to cast stone bullets until he finally broke the Earth Wall, crumbling after the 10th stone bullet hit. Cain was impressed, commenting how the Earth Wall got a decent amount of durability. A man approached Cain asking him if he was practicing magic again. Gardy praises Cain for working really hard. Cain smiles, calling Gardy's name. Gardy is the gardener and coachman for the Sanroze household. Gardy is a 35-year-old giant of a man with a scar above his left eye, and is also missing an arm. Gardy had apparently lost his arm due to injuries sustained during previous monster extermination. After the unfortunate event, Gardy was then hired by the Sanroze household. Even with 1 arm, Gardy skillfully handles the carriage. Gardy is also tasked with managing the vegetable garden and flower beds, showing very high ability. Although Gardy tends to be perceived as someone intimidating, he is actually a very kind man. When Cain asked Gardy if there was anything wrong, Gardy responded that he was just thinking of planting some sweet potatoes soon since winter is approaching. Gardy shares his idea with Cain in making a field specifically just for sweet potatoes. Cain thought about sweet potatoes and how delicious they are, especially when roasted, which gives a more sweet flavor. Sweet potatoes are a precious source of sweetness in Cain's world, where white foods are scarce, similar to sweet potatoes on Earth. Gardy then says his goodbye to Cain, to which Cain responds good luck. Looking at the crumbled Earth Wall, Cain remembers that he had to clean the mess up. Using delete, Cain easily disposed of the broken Earth Wall. With his mess now settled, Cain turns and saw Gardy plowing the garden. From what Cain observed, the soil in the field that Gardy's making looked pretty hard. Cain also noticed that there were lots of weeds and stones scattered around. Cain could only think how Gardy was doing quite a tough job. Staring at his status board and the skills shown, Cain calls Gardy and asks if he could help in making the field. Confused, Gardy wanted to say something, but Cain pleaded to help, sharing that he has an earth magic he would like to try out. Confused, Gardy confirms with Cain about the magic the young boy wanted to try out, and asks what the magic exactly was. Cain asks Gardy how big he plans on making the new sweet potato field. After thinking about it, Gardy used the tool to show Cain how big the field he plans on making. From what Cain estimates, the field is the same size as a badminton court. Cain then asks Gardy to stand back a bit. Focusing his magic, Cain then used his skill Earth Dig. After manipulating the soil, Gardy checked the soil and noticed that it had become soft. Gardy asked Cain if what he did was earth magic and expressed how surprised he truly is. Cain was able to confirm that his Earth Dig was perfect for the field. Earth Dig tills the soil and makes it soft. Proud of his work, Cain admits that he could only do small scale for the time being. But when his level goes up, he may be able to do hectares worth of land. Seeing how his magic is able to help Gardy, Cain decides to continue in making the soil soft. After repeatedly using Earth Dig, both Cain and Gardy were impressed at how nice the soil looked. With Cain's part done, Cain checked the soil and was amazed by Cain's work, which Gardy himself admitted that he may have to plow the soil for 10 days straight just to finish. Gardy grabs Cain's hands, thanking him for his help. However, Cain was just confused as to why Gardy was thanking him. Gardy explained that it took him a long time to till the soil even with 1 arm. Thanks to Cain's earth magic, he can use the save time to do other work. Receiving a thank you for such work, Cain couldn't help but feel embarrassed. Gardy stood up, telling Cain that he will now fetch the seed potatoes. Looking at the other crops, Cain realized that farming is tough in this new world as well. Cain only hopes that his earth magic can make tilling the fields a bit easier. Gardy then returns, informing Cain that he has brought the seed potatoes. When Gardy was about to plant a potato, Cain was shocked and asked Gardy if he was going to plant the potatoes as is. Cain also asked Gardy if he didn't have to make the potatoes into seedlings first. Confused, Gardy explained that they don't plant from seedlings, as they plant the potatoes as tubers. Cain realized that the knowledge and technique for crops are completely different from Earth. If one does not plant the sweet potatoes from seedlings, the harvest won't be very good. When Cain was in junior high school tech, his teacher taught him all about plants, making him wonder if his teacher now is doing well. Cain then asked Gardy if he could spare some of the seed tubers. Cain explained that he wanted to grow a sweet potato field as well. Gardy didn't mind and told Cain to make the field beside the one they had created, reassuring Cain that he would take care of the trouble. In response, Cain thanked Gardy. Staring at the sweet potatoes, Cain wonders what he should do about planters for growing seedlings since he does not see anything suitable around the area. Opening his status board, Cain wonders if he can make something from his spells. When Cain saw something in his status board, he immediately thought that it might be usable. Excited, Cain wanted to give it a try right away. Casting the spell Follow My Will and Form It, Cain then manifests his clay spell. With help from his imagination, Cain was able to form an object from clay. Seeing his work, Cain was very much pleased. With his work not being that bad, Cain realized that his create clay can be used for a lot of things. Cain wonders if he is able to make tableware or something the next time he uses create clay. Several days passed by and Cain was surprised to see the potatoes sprouting. Gardy praises Cain as the seed potatoes he planted have sprouted. Meanwhile, Gardy's field has sparse germination, which Cain confirms that it is. Cain remembered his teacher once said that planting sweet potatoes from seed of potatoes has a low germination rate and doesn't increase the yield. Cain was fairly certain that it was what his teacher said. Gardy then asked Cain if he too should plant the seedlings. In response, Cain thanked Gardy for his help, but asked for him to wait for a bit as he will have to make a ridge. Confused, Gardy asked Cain what a ridge is. Finding it hard to explain, Cain tells Gardy that he will just explain it after he makes it. Gardy understands and just follows Cain's lead. In Cain's first task, he would have to till the field. Using Earth Dig, Cain tills the soil. Planning to make the furrows properly, Cain then used his whole spell and was able to make 5 lines that are suited for sweet potato seeds planting. Cain was very excited as he was able to create the ridges. Cain explained to Gardy that the raised soil is called a ridge. This improves drainage and gets a lot of sunlight. The soil temperature rises, which helps crops grow better. The knowledge came as a surprise to Gardy. With his high school teacher saying the same thing, Cain wanted to express his great respect towards his teacher. Gardy praised Cain for having such information as he never knew that such method even existed. Excited, Gardy asks Cain where he acquired such information. Cain responded that the skill of earth magic taught him. Hearing this, Gardy has become a fan of earth magic, thinking how versatile it is. Meanwhile, Cain couldn't look Gardy in his eyes, knowing that he flat out lied. However, Cain can't deny that his earth magic has actually been useful. While studying with Alice, Cain was very eager to try using earth magic for many other things as well. The instructor notices that Alice was having a problem and realized that it was about another arithmetic problem. Seeing Alice struggle with a slightly complex 2-digit problem, the instructor suggests that they try breaking the problem down step by step and calculate. Both Cain and the instructor were surprised when Alice mentioned that she can do single-digit addition and subtraction just fine. Seeing her sister struggle with 2-digit calculation, Cain believes that if one can do a single-digit calculation, then they would eventually learn a 2-digit calculation if they just try hard. Cain then thought of something and wondered if there's a tool like an abacus in his world. Cain was certain that if they had one, then it would be very useful. An abacus can be used even in the world without electricity. Cain could not hide his emotion, which was painted by his face, eager to make the abacus after class. Outside, Cain first tackled the shape of the abacus. In Cain's previous life, he used abacus a lot and is pretty knowledgeable about it. Unfortunately, such talent cannot be included in his resume before. However, thanks to that, Cain now has a much more clear image. Cain also realized that it was his first time making something so complex with clay. Thinking of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, Cain finally got the image that he wanted. Chanting his spell, Cain created an abacus from clay. Seeing his work, Cain was very impressed and even noticed how it makes a rattling sound. The moment Cain tried to use the abacus, it broke down. Cain was in shock after breaking the abacus he made. Down on his knees, Cain guessed that his image of the item's strength just wasn't enough. Creating another one, Cain plans to image the abacus being as hard as iron. Changing the spell, create clay. Cain was once again surprised as the abacus he now created looked like it wouldn't break right away. Testing out the abacus, Cain felt like he was hitting a glockenspiel. For someone like Cain who's into acrobatics, he wasn't expecting to have fun with it, and thought about how it is like a musical instrument. However, for a beginner, Cain believed that it would be difficult for them to use it. Cain thought that the abacus would require some trial and error, but was still excited to test the tool out. Raising the abacus, Cain states how he has made something that's really satisfying. Cain notices that the beads are a bit hard to slide and the sound isn't that bothersome. However, what's most important to Cain is that the item wouldn't break. Now obtaining the abacus, Cain was happy by the thought that he would be able to help Alice out. Taking out both number 8 and number 2, Cain realized that the abacus is really quite hard to use, but still can be used as a good reference. In Cain's mind, his next plan is to think about how he came up with the item, and the possibility that an abacus had already been invented in his new world. Cain thought how it was such a pity that Benjamin wasn't present to see his item. For things like that, Cain thought that the person he should reach out to is Lydia. Passing his father's room, Cain saw Luke looked a bit distressed. Luke was now facing a major problem, wondering how he can pay off their family's debt. Hearing about a debt, Cain wonders what it was about. A maid appeared behind Cain and asked him what was the problem, and what he was doing outside his father's room. Cain explained that he was looking for Lydia. When the maid mentioned that Lydia is in the library, Cain thanked the maid in response. Heading towards the library, Cain was thinking about how startled he was. Thinking about the debt that Luke mentioned, Cain wondered if it is actually true. If the debt is true, Cain wonders if it would cause their family to be torn apart. Cain was thinking of how it had only been 6 years since he started living with everyone, and he had no intentions of being separated from them. Cain didn't want to see everyone's sad faces, but he also didn't know what to do. All Cain has is earth magic and knowledge from his past life. Determined, Cain thought that if he could make use of his abilities, then he would be able to save everyone. In order to make the country bigger and more prosperous, Cain was planning to do his best for a territorial reform. The Sanroze family's financial difficulties were revealed, which made Cain decide to reform the territory. This plan is something that Cain thought would be able to help his family even a little. However, Cain was worried, wondering where he should start. If Cain hesitates, it might be too late for him. Thinking of what he can do for the time being, Cain decides to go to Lydia and ask her about the abacus. Cain sees an opened room and remembers that it was the room for archives. Since Cain is still young, he has not yet been given permission to enter. Cain heard that their ancestors collected all sorts of things, which meant that they may have more books than a typical Viscount family. Cain calls for Lydia, asking her if he can go inside the room. Hearing Cain's voice, Lydia responds that she's in the middle of something and asks him to just enter. Inside the room, Cain immediately notices the smell of old leather and paper through the air. Cain makes his presence known and mentioned his surprise to see that their archive room has many books. Lydia guesses that it was Cain's first time visiting the archive room and thought of talking to Luke about giving Cain permission to enter the room next time. Since Cain had just recently learned how to read, Lydia guesses that Cain must have wanted to read a book. Cain was in awe as he immediately noticed that the atmosphere was different from usual and wondered if it was because of him. Cain then tells Lydia that there's something he wanted for her to see. Before Cain could show the abacus, his attention was drawn to one of the books on the shelf. When Cain asked what the book was, Lydia turned and asked which book Cain meant. Cain realized that he may have spoken his thoughts out loud. Cain then points to the glowing book on the top shelf on the right. Pointing at the book, Lydia asked Cain if he was by chance talking about the book near her. After receiving the book from Lydia, Cain immediately opens it and sees that the contents of the book are about rice cultivation methods and how to make seasonings like miso, soy sauce, mirin, ketchup, and sauce. The book also discusses using magic to recreate electrical appliances. Cain read the title of the book, The Hero's Tome, and wondered what it was. Hearing this, Lydia was shocked and asked Cain if he could actually read that book. Cain was also surprised by Lydia's reaction and asked her what she meant. Cain realized that he had committed another mistake after taking a look much closer and saw that the book was written in Japanese. Lydia immediately told the maid to call for Luke and Randolph. As Cain found out later, the book was written by his ancestor 12 generations ago. The hero book has been passed down in the Sanroze family for a very long time. It also seemed that their descendants lost the ability to read the hero's writing at some point in time. Cain thought if the reason was something he is very familiar with. Cain thought of explaining that the writing system was from the native language of his past life. However, Cain knows that such an explanation would not work. Thinking of ways to explain, Cain thought how it was very difficult to cover up his mistake. After that incident, Cain was allowed to use the archive room, and Randolph had taught him how to use it. Cain now immerses himself in the hero book. Reading the book, Cain realized that the contents were about a reincarnator just like him. The story is about a Japanese person who was apparently summoned to another world to defeat monsters. The protagonist somehow made peace with the king of the demons, had a child, and lived happily ever after. However, the man's longing for Japan never faded, and he left a book summarizing things that would be useful for a reincarnator like Cain, who had found the book. The hero of the story is also the one who wrote the book. Cain never had thought that there were other reincarnators besides him. What surprises him more is that one of his ancestors is a reincarnator. The contents were shocking for Cain, but still hold valuable information. Since there's a lot of it in the book, Cain plans on checking it thoroughly. However, Cain plans on doing something first. Too focused on the book, Cain wasn't able to bring up the abacus thing last time. Cain also plans on making use of the book while he is at it. Cain calls for his father and mother. Worried, Lydia asks Cain what was wrong. Holding the abacus, Cain tells his parents that he wanted for them to see something. When Lydia asks what it is, Cain hands the abacus over. Seeing how Lydia holds the abacus, Cain wonders if Soroban is even a thing in his new world. Luke describes the abacus as an item that has lots of balls, asking what it's used for. Cain holds the abacus and shares it with Luke, explaining that it is a tool that's useful for doing arithmetic. Confused, Luke asks what arithmetic is. Cain first explained the use for the beads on top, representing first the number 5 and then continuing to the next one. Hearing the explanation, both Luke and Lydia were amazed by Cain's tool. With the use of Cain's tool, Luke is certain that the calculations will be done quickly with less chance of error. When Lydia asked if Randolph was around, Randolph appeared and asked if Lydia or Luke called for him. Luke shows the abacus to Randolph and asks him to look at it. After Cain handed the abacus over, Randolph shared how he had never seen such a tool in his whole life. Hearing that comment from Randolph made Cain happy, as he was able to confirm that such a device has not existed ever in their world. Randolph asks Cain how he was able to manage to create the device. With Randolph now present, Cain knows that having a 6-year-old be familiar with an intricate device like an abacus would not be normal. Cain is certain that explaining all sorts of things being pointed out is going to be a hassle. Cain ended up coming up with an explanation, telling everyone that it was written in the hero's tome, even though it actually wasn't written. One thing also is that Cain has not yet finished reading the book. Shocked, Lydia assumed that by being able to read the book, Cain was able to create something from nothing. However, Cain clarifies that it was not the case, and that there were pictures drawn in the book. Cain used his earth magic just like it showed, and was able to make it. Cain also explained that the numbers were written in the language of the country, which helped Cain figure out how to use it. Cain shares his surprise in learning that the arithmetic they learned in class could be used in such an easy-to-understand way. Thinking about giving the abacus to Alice, Cain is certain that Alice would be pretty delighted. Realizing that Cain was the inventor and the only person who could make such a tool, Luke turns to Randolph, to which Randolph then asks Cain how many of the abacus he could make in a day. Cain explained that the tool requires soil, but creating the abacus can still work with the same material is okay. If Cain were to work hard, he could make 100 or even 200 a day. Hearing this, Randolph couldn't help but be amazed, asking Cain if he didn't mind making some now. After giving Cain a plate full of soil, Cain then starts creating the abacus and chants his create clay spell. Seeing how Cain is able to make the tool with magic, the three present were astonished by him. Lydia finds it very wonderful and hugs Cain tightly. Luke also shared how surprised he is. Randolph tells Luke that the abacus might possibly be the means to restore the Sanroze family, to which Luke agrees. Pleased with Cain's invention, Lydia pats Cain's head. Luke tells Cain that he has one request from him. Luke clarifies that what he is about to ask isn't necessary, but still asks for his son to make a few abacuses every day. Cain was thinking how he didn't mind, but was curious as to why his father needed so many of them. Cain responds, agreeing to his father's request. Happy, Luke pats Cain's head, thanking him for the help. With just like that, Cain spent every afternoon making abacuses before he knew it. Engrossed in making abacuses, Cain ended up completing 2,000 of them. Cain too finds it strange, as he was now making a large number of abacuses when his intention in the first place was to make it for his big sister. Luke's plan was now taking the abacus to the Commerce Guild. If his plan were to go well, then he was certain that he would get royalties. Cain was surprised, as he thought if his father could really do that. Luke laughs as he assumes that what he had said is something that Cain still wouldn't understand. Luke then orders Randolph to take care of the arrangements, to which Randolph understood and immediately followed orders. And so the abacuses Cain made were brought to the Commerce Guild. At first, the Commerce Guild receptionist listened to the story warily, but eventually he was beaming with excitement. The abacus, which was successfully registered, now had the additional task of creating a new nobles chapter. It is unavoidable since it's for when similar products are made. Cain informed the receptionist that if a similar product were to come out, it would likely cause dispute over which one is authentic. In response, the receptionist tells Cain that the one making the judgment is Hermes, the god of all occupations. Thinking about a god making judgment, Cain guessed that no one could really complain. A few days later, Cain was recognized as the original developer of the abacus. Both Luke and Lydia were extremely happy after hearing such wonderful news. But what surprised Cain even more was that Randolph sold a single abacus for 3 gold coins. In their world, there are copper, silver, gold, and platinum coins, each denomination being 100 times the previous one. If one considers a copper coin to be worth 10 yen, then 1 gold coin is equivalent to 100,000 yen. Apparently, the total sales of abacuses amounted to 6,000 gold coins. This meant that the Sanroze family had amounted to 600 million yen in sales. Cain thought that the number was just too huge to comprehend, expecting less from Randolph, as Cain knew that he could really count on him as a manager. Looking at his father, Cain thought that their household worries were finally resolved. Luke informs Randolph that their urgent financial problems are now resolved. Having more breathing room, Luke tells Randolph that they will need to repair the castle walls and maintain the roads before winter. Randolph agrees and shares his thoughts on carefully using the remaining money they have. Hearing that, Cain realized that they had a lot of other things to take care of. Seeing his father thinking about the people, Cain guessed that his actions are just normal for someone who is a lord. Cain then calls for his father, asking if they should make more abacuses, reassuring them that he can still do more. Shocked, Luke asks Cain if he could really make more. This eventually led to Cain spending several more days making an additional 1,000 abacuses. Cain visits his father in his room, informing him that the abacuses were completed a while ago. Pleased to hear the news, Luke thanked Cain for his help. Luke pointed out that he really received a huge help, and thanks to Cain, the people of the domain didn't have to go hungry. Luke was very proud to have Cain as his son, patting Cain on his head. Smiling brightly, Cain was glad that the earth magic was actually useful to people. Luke tells Cain that he is the one who deserves credit more. After consulting with Lydia, they decided that even a child should receive a reward. Luke then asks Cain if there was something that he wanted. Cain thought that if it were his past life, he'd want to share the profits. However, now that he is just a 6-year-old, even if he had money, he still wouldn't be able to use it. Cain didn't really have anything particular that he wanted. Since it was still a rare opportunity, Cain felt like it would be a waste if he didn't ask for something. Cain realized that he may still have not shaken off his poor mentality from his past life. After a minute of thinking, Cain tells his father that he just wanted to eat 2 sweet potatoes when they're roasted next time. Confused, Luke asks Cain if that is really all that he wanted. When Cain responds that it is, Luke agrees and tells Cain that they will have some roasted sweet potatoes next time. Excited, Cain now has something that he was looking forward to. Eager to eat the delicious sweet potatoes, Cain was now more determined in developing their territory even further. As the sun shone brightly, the maids still felt sleepy, always finding the early shift tough since no one was awake yet aside from them. To the maids' surprise, they did not expect to see Cain up and awake, greeting them with a good morning. Flustered, both maids greeted Cain back and pointed out how it was still quite early for Cain to be awake. Cain explained that he would just head out for a run and would be back by breakfast. After Cain said goodbye, the maids were left confused since Cain was only 6 years old and was already quite active. Seeing Cain being so serious, the maids thought that they too had to be proper. Quickly and efficiently, the maids were working hard like never before. Seeing the maids' behavior, Randolph thought that the maids were quite motivated. Cain took immediate action for the purpose of reforming the territory. After his warm-up exercise, Cain's first step was to build up his physical strength. Cain and everyone else decided to work on leveling up their respective skills. Firstly, it was by waking up at 6 in the morning and building up physical strength. Next was attending classes with Alice until lunch. After lunch, Cain practiced his earth magic and magic control at the training grounds. For the healing magic that Cain inherited from his biological mother, he aimed to practice it 20 times a day repetitively. After 3 months passed by, Cain checked his status board and was very happy to see everyone's levels had increased. Earth magic and healing magic had gained additional items. When Cain looked at his earth magic, he saw that it now had sand, mud, and dry. Looking at the new features of his earth magic, Cain wondered how he should use those. Thinking about it, Cain checked his healing magic real quick and saw that it now gave an area recovery. Cain found his heal more useful now as it could heal more people at once. Cain still thought how it was best that nobody got hurt in the first place. With the healing magic he inherited from his mother Linnell, Cain wished to use it to save many people. With Cain's current pace, he was certain that he would be able to keep learning more useful magic. Before studying in the library, Cain wondered if he should go check out the sweet potato field. Cain saw Gardy in the field and called his name. After approaching Gardy, Cain praised him for doing some good work and asked him how the sweet potatoes were doing. Gardy responded, telling Cain that the sweet potatoes were doing great. The field Gardy planted was also doing well. But what surprised Gardy more was Cain's field that looked even more amazing. The sweet potatoes planted from the ridges and seedlings were amazing, and it seemed like almost all of them had taken root. Gardy pointed to his field, sharing how it was taking root much better than usual, but still not as good as Cain's field. Cain told Gardy that if they tried planting in his field from seedlings next year, there was a possibility that it might become even more amazing. Gardy agreed and wanted to grow a lot of sweet potatoes and surprise themselves even more. Just thinking about the sweet potatoes piling up, both Cain and Gardy couldn't help but giggle. Picking up a sack, Gardy told Cain that he was now heading back to the mansion and asked Cain if he planned to stay and watch the fields a bit longer. Cain responded that he would not, and that he would join Gardy back to the mansion as well. After their task, Gardy suggested that they relax after cleaning off the dirt, to which Cain responded that it sounded good to him. All of a sudden, Gardy suddenly stopped and his face was painted in horror. Noticing Gardy's reaction, Cain asked what was wrong. When Cain looked at where Gardy was looking, he was surprised to see the road in a mess. Gardy stated how the road leading to the mansion had become a mess because of the rain the day before yesterday. Gardy told Cain that they would need to put down some sand before the head of the Sanroze family came back. If ruts formed, the carriage might not be able to pass. Gardy apologizes to Cain and tells him that he would have to go around back and grab some sand. Gardy then asks Cain if he could make it back on his own. Cain understands and was about to head on first when he thought of using the new earth magic he just learned on the matter. Cain asks Gardy to wait and also asks him to get a board that can level the ground, something similar to a spatula. After explaining to Gardy the type of tool he needed, Gardy then left in a hurry. Now dealing with the road issue, Cain first touches the road and immediately feels how cold it is. Cain tells himself that he can handle the cold and that it is all for the sake of helping everyone. Cain then used one of his new skill features, mud. In just a few seconds, the road now looked leveled. Seeing how nice it looked, Cain wonders if it worked. Coincidentally, Gardy returns and apologizes for keeping Cain waiting. Cain welcomes Gardy back and tells him to use the magic to flatten out the road that has gotten muddy. Gardy was amazed and asked Cain if he was the one who made the road muddy. If the road gets muddy, the earth gets softer and easier to level out. Using a flattening tool, Gardy was very much impressed at how easy it was to level out the earth, much faster than usual. Hearing this, Cain thought it was good. After finishing leveling the road, Gardy stated that all that is left for them to do is to dry it out. Cain tells Gardy to wait, as he still has some of his new magic that he has learned. Chanting his spell, Dry, in just seconds the muddy road had dried out. Seeing the road, Gardy was very much impressed at how fast the mud dried. Upon further inspection, Gardy became even more impressed after seeing how perfectly flat it is. With the newly fixed road, horse-drawn carriages could pass through without any problems. Cain pointed out how it still felt a bit weird seeing that only one part of the road is flat. Cain suggests to Gardy in just flattening everything out before his father, Luke, returns. Liking Cain's suggestion, Gardy agrees to it. The two work together to flatten the path to the mansion, and before even an hour had passed, the two had finished flattening out the whole road. Cain thanked Gardy as they were able to clean up the road in no time. Gardy also thanked Cain and his earth magic. Pointing out how they've gotten themselves more dirty, Gardy suggests that they go to the well together and have themselves cleaned up. Hearing that, Cain responded how it sounded good. Walking on their way to the well, Cain wonders if his father will notice, as he is a little excited. Knowing how his father usually reads documents even inside the carriage, Cain guessed that his father won't notice their work at all. Back at his study, Cain heard his name being called and asked if he was around. Responding to the call, Cain tells that he is inside and asks what is wrong. Luke wanted to confirm with Cain if he was the one who flattened out the path that leads to the mansion. Cain explained that Gardy and he were the ones who flattened out the ruts, so they wouldn't be noticeable. However, since Luke knew about the road, Cain asked if they did a bad thing. Luke tells Cain that it's alright and apologizes for startling him, reassuring Cain that it's not a problem. Luke pointed out to Cain that he did the opposite. After passing through the mansion's gate, the vibrations completely stopped, which surprised Luke and made him wonder what was going on. Luke has never seen a road so flat and beautiful before. Luke praises Cain for doing a great job, after which he then hands him his allowance. After receiving a coin, Cain thanked his father as he felt really happy for it. Cain tells his father that he will split the reward with Gardy. Luke tells Cain that he is really kind and that he would give Gardy a separate share as well, which Luke suggests that Cain use the reward for himself. Hearing that, Cain thanked his father. Later that day, Gardy thanked Cain as Gardy mentioned that he received a special reward. After several days, Cain was once again shocked to see the road become a mess of a puddle again. That is the end of the recap at chapter 7.2. Please read the pinned comment about the next part.